as much as it's for the country as well. So that's very unique, and most of the people who sit here represent the Technopark companies, which is small enterprise and small and medium-sized enterprise. One of the topics that we would like to discuss, I would like to discuss today with Sam, is the challenges the IT industry is facing as we speak. During the last 30 years, as we all know, the industry has grown significantly. The statistics say from 4 million in 1979 to about 88 billion as we stand today. Significant growth. Just last one decade itself, we grew from 8 billion in 2000 to 88 billion. And the strengths or the factors which supported that growth are predominantly the availability of skilled youth at extremely competitive rates. And Indian companies were able to take advantage of the technology that is available to them to re-engineer legacy applications of the Western world. And the big companies of our country like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Cognizant, which we take immense pride, they have been able to participate hundreds of thousands of people through process capability and process competence to produce predictable results. And but when we look today, a lot of those advantages are fast diminishing. India is no longer the cheapest place, let me use that word. There are a lot of alternate locations coming. 4 weeks back, we realized, as you know, that the #1 position for BPO, particularly consular BPO, has moved. That #1 position has been taken by Philippines. We also have disadvantages in the sense, as we grow and evolve, we realize that skilled resource is becoming very scarce, as a result of which there is a lot of attrition and wage inflation. And another major cause of concern for our country and for the industry is that the Western world is becoming more and more, I think, protective. Protective policies are coming, and the growing in the emerging markets, the technology adoptions. And one of the biggest problem, I think that is where we would need the help of Sam Pitroda, is the regulatory activism that is actually coming. For instance, during the initial years, the regulators did not even know that there is an industry like IT actually coming. And the latter part, I think they have come up with very supportive measures, STPIs and all of those. Now when all of that has been stopped now, and there's significant level of indifference. I represent the state actually in the NASCOM Executive Council, and one of the major issues which they have been talking about is the indifference of the revenue with what I'm talking about, the taxman towards this industry. This industry has actually positioned our country as a respectable, resurgent, emerging nation of pharmaceuticals. And this particular industry pays maximum tax because 70% of our expenses are on the employees, and employees pay income tax. The rest of the income, the balance, is also taxed. All the benefits are gone. STPI benefits have been stopped. SEZ benefits have been completely gone with 20% MAT. And we are in that kind of situation. And this is the time where our inherent advantage, available youth and cost arbitrage, is fast diminishing. And we are at a crossroad. How do we actually take this industry forward? Multinational companies like Accenture and IBM has cracked the India offshore secret. So how do we take this industry forward unless we get that kind of support? A number of the innovation and leadership, the topic which Aspen has put today, is very relevant in this context. We have to move up the value chain. We really, changing from order takers, we should be able to understand the benefit, the business of our target industry, and we should be able to innovate and produce, provide business process improvement and then support that through technology system. So innovation is the way forward, definitely for the industry. But we also really need, for innovation, the first and foremost one is an ecosystem which supports innovation. We definitely, why do we need to innovate? Because that's required for our long-term survival. And where do you innovate? I think we should innovate in our core competence areas and link to our strategic intent. And what is required for innovation? According to me, an ecosystem, a mindset change, a climate is required for innovation. And all of this would also require investment. And one of the things that we have to be discussing is, if you really want to take IT industry to the rural parts and the suburban parts of our country, we should actually promote that. Why not provide STPI benefits in tier 2 and tier 3 cities? We should not be calling them tier 2, tier 3 cities. Why don't give those benefits? These are some of the issues which we were discussing. We had last week, Thursday, Friday, we had the India IT Summit held by CII in Travancore. And so the issues that I was actually highlighting here, the indifference of the government towards this industry, the regulatory activism which is actually going to work against the innovation that this industry should actually promote. All of these are issues that and I thought this is a platform that we should use to air some of these issues that we face and seek the help of Sam Pitroda to actually help us. I don't want to take more time. I leave the floor to Shafi to take over and conduct through the rest of the session. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Shafi.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Actually, just to set the context, Sam has specifically come here in his role as the chairman of National Innovation Council to listen to all of you about leadership through innovation. And he is going across the country, meeting youngsters and people from the industry to understand from the youngsters and industry at the grassroots level as to what should be the policy changes for feeding large-scale innovation. Just to also speak about Aspen Institute India, who is actually organizing this series across the country. I just happened to be a fellow of Aspen Institute, and this responsibility was thrust on me to represent Aspen and moderate the session. Aspen Institute India is part of the Aspen Global Institute, and it's been set up to encourage thought leadership, policy discussions, policy debates, etc. And Aspen is hand-holding this series of lectures. Before I invite Sam to speak to you and start the session, I want to highlight to you two softer sides of this person called Sam Pitroda. 12 years back, I was at a CII conference, and I had read about Sam Pitroda, and I walked into a CII conference in Hyderabad, and there's this gentleman with silver hair and typical hairstyle, and I wanted to meet him. No introductions, nothing, so I walked up to him and I said, "Sir, I'm so-and-so from Kerala. I have an interesting concept in emergency medical service. I would like 10 minutes of your time to discuss it with you." And he's like, there are 30 other people waiting there around him. And he said, "Oh, no, young man, I can give you 2 minutes." So I said, "Sir, I actually read your book. And in that book, when you came back from US to India and asked for the appointment with the Prime Minister of India, then Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and you had asked for 1 hour, and the Prime Minister's office gave 15 minutes, you actually told them that it's a waste of time for the Prime Minister and me to meet for 15 minutes, because I need 1 hour to present what I want to present." And he said, "You got me there. Okay, I'll give you 10 minutes, come to the lobby." And that's how I met him. No introduction, no references, nothing. Walked up to this man, and since then he has been a mentor personally for me. Second, today morning at 7:30, one gentleman by the name Tony Fernandez lands up at the hotel. Unbelievably, Tony Fernandez and Sam Pitroda studied 42 years back in University of Chicago, and they're meeting after a gap of 42 years. And Sam, Sam was so warm to Tony. These are things which shows the softer side of Sam. So with that as a context, I invite Sam to speak to you for 10-15 minutes. And he has impressed upon the organizers, Aspen and me as a moderator, that he wants to hear from you, hear questions, hear comments, hear observation.
Mr. V.K. Matthew, Safi Mathur, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed a privilege for me to be here in this great state. I remember coming here in 88, 87 to same building, if I can remember it right. Thereafter, Jairam Ramesh and I used to come here on and off as part of the technology missions. So it is good to be back. I'm delighted to be back, and I appreciate the opportunity to interact with you all. I sincerely believe that we are living in very exciting times. I wish I was 40 years younger. Today, on one hand, we are growing at over 8%. On the other hand, we have 550 million young below age of 25. In addition, lots of interesting technologies offer unique ways to attack big problems. Take, for example, internet web. I don't think anything like this happened for 15,000 years. The first real invention like internet was language, which really brought all the human beings together. Then it was sort of pockets of small communities. Internet is bringing an entire global community together. Instant connectivity, real-time sharing of information. And this offers very different ways to look at challenges ahead of us. I think internet web is changing everything around us. The way we work, entertain, socialize. It is giving us opportunity to create new business models. Unfortunately, we really don't quite understand and appreciate. This is going to have far-reaching implications on governance, on education, on health, transport, cities. People are already talking about smart cities. Take, for example, education. The learning models have remained constant for God knows how many years, thousands of years. The teacher creates content and delivers content. I don't need teacher to create content anymore. Nor do I need teacher to deliver content. And as a result, the role of the teacher will change to that of a mentor. So how do you re-engineer this process and convert millions of teachers from routine teaching to mentoring? Massive task. So when I look around opportunities today, I feel there is just too much work ahead of us to really redesign processes, re-engineer systems, add values, create new jobs, new businesses. And this requires total transformation, generational change and not incremental change.
So Mr. Matthew talked about software industry today. I believe this phase is about to end. The first phase of Indian software industry is definitely going to end. When we just went to foreign countries and did their work with labor artifacts, with a lot of other countries competing, whether it's Vietnam or Uruguay, this model may not be sustainable for too long.
So you talked about the innovations, new ideas, etc., etc. Most of the people came here are they represent individually. For individually it may digest. But when you talk about the new innovations, new ideas to a group, for example, state electricity board or state transport, there are political interests are there. So for them, there is no lack of ideas, nothing is there, but only because of the political interest, they are not ready for changes. So how can we tackle, you are already the member for 2030 Kerala development plan. So how can we tackle these kind of issues? For individual, these new ideas, everything will digest. But when you talk about the organizations, they are not ready to accept all these things.
See, just the idea is not good enough. Ideas are dime a dozen. How do you present that idea? How do you package that idea? How do you sell that idea? To convert that idea into action is also the responsibility of the inventor. Inventor can't say, I have this great idea that I want to fly from here to the sun. Okay. That's an idea. How do you do it? So invariably good idea finds resistance, but you have to keep at it. You have to create lobby for it, lobby for change. You might think it takes 3 months, it might take 3 years to accept that idea. But if it is a good idea, it will find roots somewhere, sometime. Some ideas take more time, other ideas take less time. You have to keep at it, you can't give up. Think, okay, I went to this government office and the guy says, bad idea, so I came home. No, then you have to try again when the guy changes or some new fellow comes in. Maybe he'll be receptive to the idea. It's a constant battle. Change is a battle within and battle outside. Change doesn't come easy, even within. And I blame myself for many things that I know it's not right, but I just do it. And then once in a while I get into trouble. And then I feel sorry. I know this should be done, but I do it anyway. I cheat a little bit here and there in food. So you get into trouble. So these things happen in life.
How do we filter good ideas? I mean, actually 3 days back I listened to a story in the newspaper that we are soon going to have an express train which runs at 300 km per hour from the north to the south in Kerala at 1,20,000 crores budget, where we have, say, national highways which are very, very narrow, which every month we have accidents where about tens of deaths happen. I mean, about hundreds of deaths happen and huge costs for. So the point is, the government is actually putting huge force in getting that express train. I really don't know. It's not like connecting Shanghai to Beijing or something where huge business transaction happens. We are not a state which has huge. So I think within that background, I want to ask, what are your 3 important points of areas as a mentor for the state of Kerala?
I am here first to listen. After listening, we have a press conference planned this afternoon, and I'm sure at that press conference a lot of these things will come. So we'll talk then. Thanks.
One question in that, I'll take a cue from that question that he asked. I don't know if I fall into the age category that Shafi mentioned, but I would love to think that I do.
Please don't take it personally. Have good self-esteem.
Yes. 2 days back, the TV channels in Kerala, or probably national media, was discussing the recommendations of the Sam Pitroda Commission about raising 25% the rates of the railways. So I want to throw the idea of what is the cost of innovation. I mean, is the innovation going to be at the cost of the common man's day-to-day facilities? Or how do you make sure that people are included in these innovations going forward? The general people and general public are included. And one more question. And then there is the question of policy, wherein there are programs like NREGS, where I go back. I run a company here and I employ some 50 or so people, and all of a sudden, for the medium-sized companies, there is no tax incentives from the government. That's okay. Then you go back to your village and you see 100 or so people working under NREGS, sitting down and go-sitting and wasting time, as I see it. Now, what is that the sort of policy framework that we should follow to include the general public in the innovations that is being envisioned by the current government?
Innovation that we are focusing on relates to inclusive growth. Don't confuse innovation with railway modernization. Railway modernization is totally a different program. The report you saw in the paper is a leak inspired by somebody. We have not submitted our report yet. There is no such recommendation in the report as of now. But these things happen in India. So don't pay too much attention to media. Until the report is published, handed over to minister, then read the entire report. Don't take one thing out of context. So it's easy to take one thing out of context, as opposed to seeing the whole big picture. In a country of 1.2 billion people, railways need modernization because common people use railways. First, so whatever you do in railway is for common people. Now, to meet the requirement, if you have to increase fare or increase, engine horsepower or track or signaling, all that is part of larger scheme of things. Okay. So you have to say, in 2011, 2012, where I am in railway, and where do I want to be in 10 years? And what is the price to pay? And sometimes you have to pay a price for the larger good. So don't take things out of context. But Indians have this tendency. Just mess it up. It is great. What can you do?
Just to clarify that question, because this is heavily debated here. I don't think there is anything wrong in someone thinking that from northern part of Kerala to southern part of Kerala, we should reduce our travel time and travel trouble, and it should be safer. And I think that is an idea which is worth considering. Again, as Sam Pitroda said, see, it is not just the idea. The ideator also have to make sure that the idea can be implemented. Otherwise, what happens is a great vision without execution capability is nothing but hallucination.
Yeah. I'm Shashi from Sri Lanka. Recently, I attended two major conferences. Both these conferences, the paper presentation was almost the same pattern. The number of paper presentations from China was about 20% of the total papers, and from India it is between 1 and 2%. Number one, is this a problem? Number two, if it is a problem, is it that we don't have basic research in the international level, or is it a problem because we have international research kind of research but we are not presenting it properly? Number three, if it is a problem, is it a good idea to learn from China how they achieve it?
See, a lot of these are one-on-one management questions. Don't underestimate the intelligence of people who are in the government. May not be all, but there are some interesting, good people. We know that China is at least 15 years ahead of us, because Chinese started their liberalization much earlier. We started in 1991. So everything you look at in terms of China-India comparison or US-China-India comparison has to be seen in terms of where we are today versus where they are. Roads, universities, R&D, per capita income, growth, everything. You just go to Beijing and Shanghai and you know the difference. Okay? That's the reality of life. We got to do what we got to do. Chinese have to do what Chinese have to do. More power to them. Okay? The question is, what are we doing to meet our own challenges? I'll give you one example. I was in Shanghai in 1979, just after, or 80, just after Nixon had gone to China. US had sent a group of delegation in telecom. And Shanghai was probably equivalent to Mumbai then. And then I went recently, 2-3 years ago. There's one big road from airport to downtown. It is, 16-lane straight line. I'm sure somebody drew a line saying that's going to be the road. Then everybody bulldoze in the middle. And just build the road. You can't do that in India. Your Indian road will be like this, and land acquisition will take 20 years. That's what you got. Accept it. Okay. Now, what is good, what is bad, I don't know. But that's the reality. Chinese can bulldoze. Indians cannot. So, we need to catch up. We need aspirations. Okay. But in everything, we can't go on comparing. We got to really look at the reality here. Okay.
So I have a question. So in corporate world, we use a buzzword that is best practices, right? Across India, if you see, there's so many states that's come out with so many revolutions, like the milk revolution in Gujarat, the Punjab agriculture revolution. How much of all these best practices do you think is been actually implemented across states in India? I see there's a lot of innovation and leadership that can come out with that. So do you think government is supporting in that, or do you think that there's enough of implementation happening in that area?
See, at the end of the day, government is people. People working in the government are your cousin and my cousins. They're not any different. They're not from the other planet. So best practices are not really practiced that well. To understand human development, you don't need to go outside India. Every state should look at Kerala. Infant mortality, female literacy, health indicators. It's right here. Why can't other states learn from Kerala? Don't ask me why. But they don't. They don't have to go to Switzerland to understand all this. But they do. Okay? Yeah, you can form out it, huh? It's okay. So I think best practices, there are a lot of good examples in this country that we could multiply. It's a mindset.
Can I ask?
So last 3 questions, because we have to leave here at 10:25 to go to the next one.
I'm Sadashivan from IIITMK. I am just wondering, how far will you have to travel from literacy to domain expertise? In other words, government is heavily investing on education and research sectors. What is the mechanism of quality assurance over a period of time? Could you please react to this?
When we looked at higher education as part of the National Knowledge Commission, we realized that there are really 3 fundamental challenges. One is expansion, because only 10 or 11% of our children could go to college then when we were preparing the report. And we really need 25% to fuel the kind of growth we are planning for the next 20 years. So expansion. More colleges, more universities, more professors, more facilities, more schools, more teachers, all of that. 2, excellence. Leaving aside top 5-10% of our universities, quality of education is pretty bad. That's what we got. I mean, there are global international university in 2 rooms. Someplace. And poor kids are taken for a ride. They pay fees. They don't get right education. But these things take time. When IIT Kharagpur was built, there were 2 professors in the beginning in a garage. Wait for 25 years, things change. So the bad universities of today may turn out to be okay 10, 20 years from now. Third is equity. We have to make sure that the poorest of the poor can indeed get the best education possible. So these are the 3 fundamental challenges remain with us. And I think it will remain with us for a while. We are not going to be able to solve this. But we are addressing this one at a time. A lot of these things are part of a journey. There are no end points. You don't finish that journey. You start that journey and keep at it. 20 years, 25 years. If you're looking for results tomorrow afternoon, it won't happen. Building a company is very different from building a nation. Building a nation is a pretty complex process. Building a company is sort of interesting, comparatively easy.
So my question is regarding National Innovation Council. I'm a designer, industrial designer, and I've been working with design training scheme and stuff like that for promoting design with MSMEs. So there are 3 questions. First is that how is National Innovation Council different from similar schemes and programs that government is already doing? Second is that how do you ensure that these initiatives trickle down to the bottom of the pyramid? And 3, how can professionals like us collaborate with this initiative?
Please look at the website of National Innovation Council. I don't want to be rude, but I'm sure none of you have really looked at these websites. Okay. We are great at commenting on all kinds of things, not very good at doing our homework. When I go to meet somebody, I Google him or her. I know everything about that person I'm going to meet, even if it is for 10 minutes. Today, tools are very different. If you're going to look at leadership and innovation, I would have Googled innovation, Sam Pitroda, National Innovation Council, Knowledge Commission, Knowledge Network. It's all there. And 90% of your questions would be answered. Okay? But don't do it. And these are all experts, leaders, IT fellows. It's not part of our culture. It takes a long time for us to change. You know it needs to be done. You know you can do it. Person, did you do it? No. Last question. I think you.
Myself, Shirley from IIIT. This is again the question from the education side. So you have mentioned that we have to think out of the boxes to have a good quality of education and not the degree and the certificates that we provide. I do really agree with that. But do you have any initiative on the government side to break the other regulatory rules that is coming or imposing to us?
I don't think so. I think government would want more regulation, perhaps. Okay. That was life.
So,
thanks everyone. Really appreciate it.
2 technology incubators out of this Technopark has requested Sam to release a product. So we'll do it in 45 seconds. Please join. There is Ranjit Balan from Cell Technologies and Saiju Vistella from Austin. And with support from On behalf of
Aspen. Yeah, we're doing some stuff in Rajasthan right now on the Cape Club. Sujata Hamadurai, one of our members of the is experimenting with 10 panchayats on NAT for K-12. So, we'll be very interested. If it is good, we'll try it out in panchayats. Okay? We'll find out. We'll find out. On behalf of Aspen Institute, I would like to thank GTech for partnering with Aspen Institute for organizing this program. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. We would also acknowledge a national parent company who supported this initiative. We thank the media who has come here early in the morning. And we would like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Gopalakrishnan, who is the Member Secretary of National Innovation Council and who is from Kerala. So thank you all for being here, and on behalf of everybody we thank Sam for being here.